Welcome back, Automators, for another series of the Energetic Automator Series, or aka just the Automator Series. And today I'm with Nicky Blakeman of Nicky Blakeman Sleep Coaching, which is a nice change for the series. So, firstly, thanks so much for taking the time this morning.
No, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and right away, I'd love to just pass it over to you just to say hi to everyone, and then also just introduce yourself, let people know a bit more about like what is sleep coaching, and just kind of what you actually do in Nicky Blakeman Sleep Coaching.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I'm Nikki. Basically, I am a sleep coach. Not many people really properly understand what that is, just because it's quite a new specialism, I guess. People think of sleep coaching in terms of babies and young children, and that's where
Mm,
most people will have that familiarity with the term. But actually, it's more common that adults now are really struggling with sleep and
mm,
also need a sleep coach. So that's what I am, that's what I do, and I help people, particularly who are struggling when it's their own thoughts that are keeping them awake.
mm,
So it's people that don't have a medical problem. If you had a medical problem, you'd probably be at your doctor. So it's not that. There is no apparent reason why you can't sleep medically, but you just can't. And the most common symptoms are things like it's taking you ages to get to sleep in the evening, or you're waking in the middle of the night and then you're lying awake for a couple of hours
mm,
and you just can't stop your thoughts and they're just going on and on and on. And while most of us as adults experience that occasionally, for some people, it just becomes habitual and they're just going through that struggle every night. And then obviously that leads to being very tired, it comes into your daytime, and you
mm.
just generally start to dread going to bed, and then that brings issues of its own. And so it's actually more and more and more common as our lives get busier. This is my view. As our modern lives get busier, it seems to be a growing issue. And I think the need for sleep coaches is there because we're not taught about this at school. I mean, it
Mm.
might be different where you are. I'm in the UK. We definitely weren't taught about this at school. I have loads of clients in the US and they definitely weren't taught about this at school. So when you have a problem, you're really stuck. You really don't know what to do and you do need some support.
Yeah, and I've got already tons of questions based off that already because this is something I'm interested in personally as well. But just before we do that, I'd love to just kind of flesh out the context a little bit. So, are you working with? Do you find you're working specifically with certain ages of people, men, women? Are they from a certain background? Kind of like who do you enjoy working with the most?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because when I started out on the journey of being a sleep coach, I really opened up to kind of whoever needed help with sleep.
Mm,
But very quickly, actually, what I found was that people had really had the struggles, or I was attracting clients who were really having the same struggles that I did. So, although I'm a certified sleep coach to help with lots of sleep problems, like I said, the really specific common problem that I'm finding is it is this mental battle with sleep.
mm,
So, there's nothing physically wrong. I just can't get my mind to switch off. And what's also interesting is then the type of clients um, that come in are really, again, they do actually have a very typical pattern. So normally very successful
mm,
senior career or a serial entrepreneur, a very busy lifestyle, actually more commonly male, and just ironically very successful in lots of other areas of life,
mm.
very good at problem solving, but just unable to crack sleep. And the real frustration of, look, I'm good, I'm competent, I'm intelligent, I can normally fix things, but I just can't fix this. So again, that sort of that struggle, and that anxiety coming from really being out of control when they're normally in other aspects of their life very much in control.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because it's probably almost counterintuitive, like for that mindset when they're like, oh, I can fix everything, I want to fix this, but like trying to fix it like puts too much pressure on it maybe, and then that stops them from being able to just let go and go to sleep type of thing.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of it.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because you were saying, oh, a lot of people by default think it's like training babies to sleep. Like maybe it's just the circles I run in and the stuff I watch, but I instantly just associated sleep coaching with productivity. It's like helping people be at their peak performance. Um, yeah, I mean, just because of all I've read and the studies I've listened to in regards to sleep, it's like if you don't sleep properly, your emotional control goes out the window, your thinking patterns go out the window. It's like you basically turn into like a pile of goo.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. So what happens is that um, our prefrontal cortex, which is, you're right, really keeping our emotional, more primitive centers under control,
Mm.
doesn't quite connect properly. I know that's not a technical term because it is always connected, but it doesn't quite have the same control when we haven't slept. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. We're very much going from a place of kind of emotional reactivity, not rational thinking, and we have mood swings more likely as well. So people do associate lack of sleep with obviously negative thoughts and feeling kind of down, and that's correct. But actually, it can also make you flip flop the other way and into a little bit of a high as well, and you can flip flop. So that can be a symptom for some people as well. Yeah. So you're right. Sleep is around productivity, and people do coach for sleep for productivity. That's right. That's often more seen, I think, in kind of sports, like you're right, high performance, like sports or athletics. It's really well understood, and
Yeah.
people really prioritize it. And in some areas of business, sort of business coaching, it's really well understood. But for, I guess, for your kind of just normal senior manager, kind of going through life, maybe people with children, it's just not. I personally don't find it's really understood, and I feel there's very much still this culture. And I think to answer your other question about kind of age, because it's definitely my generation, I'm an 80s kid, and it's definitely my generation of work hard, play hard, do more stuff, get more
Mm.
done in a day. Sleep is kind of expendable, don't worry about that. Successful people don't sleep. So when I was growing up, we had Margaret Thatcher was having 4 hours sleep, Ronald Reagan used to boast he was having 4 hours sleep. It very much, even Trump today saying he doesn't sleep very much, and
Yeah.
that it's that kind of, to me, that 80s 90s power culture of sleep is for wimps or for boring people, or like you saying. And I think that's still stuck in our culture, very much in our cultural fabric.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen some of that results wise in the people you've worked with, like those in the business space, senior management, like maybe they come to you with like, oh, I just want to sleep better, but then they find there was I don't know, they start closing more deals or their company starts growing quicker, or like, have you seen it translate over into other parts of their lives than they originally thought?
Yeah, so I have coached some training professionals who've definitely improved their training through
Mm.
through tackling their sleep. In terms of business, what people tend to find is it just releases the stress and anxiety. So it's funny because although we know intellectually that there's a link between sleep and anxiety and stress,
Mm.
actually, when you're stuck in that loop, you don't necessarily see it. It's weird. You actually do think that you're managing the stress of your busy day job,
Yeah.
and then your sleep problem is a kind of separate thing. And so what most people find is when they fix their sleep issue, it has this effect on their general stress and their general motivation at work and their general ability to get stuff done. Do you see what I mean? Whereas
Mm.
they actually thought they were handling it before. But it's an interesting question, actually. I've never had anyone come back and say, in terms of numerical figures, I'm now closing X more deals. Maybe I should ask that question more,
Yeah.
give me some quantifiable improvement.
I mean, I'm also completely just not, well, I'm just guessing on the slash, um, I can make an educated guess, but I'm guessing when you spoke about people don't realize how much sleep is impacting them, it's probably because, like, I don't know, their body, like the cortisol and their stress is kind of just like their adrenaline. It's like just keeping them going. So they don't even really think about it. They're just like, okay, I'm still going, but it's actually just being propped up by like cortisol and adrenaline and all these other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people are in that position and not realizing it. So it is that I use the expression kind of jacked up on cortisol, and you're right, it is. It's not a technical term, that's just my term. Because it is, you're just having so many cortisol hits throughout the day to deal with the stress.
Mm,
That's potentially impacting your sleep, but you don't realize you're going in the loop. But the other thing actually that they've found is that people who are tired and people who are tired over a long period of time. And when I say tired, it's important perhaps that we kind of put some parameters about what we're talking about, because even I think there's some confusion about what insomnia is or what lack of sleep is. And most scientists, although there's obviously, like any science, there's a variance in opinion, most scientists think that less than 6 hours every night is poor sleep, is not enough sleep.
mm,
And there are scientists who think people could say I can manage on 5. They actually cannot manage on 5. It's just an illusion that
mm.
you can manage on 5. And obviously some people might think, well, I get 5 this night, but I get 8 on a Saturday. And again, that's not adequate normally either. It has to be at least 6, and it has to be every single night. So what scientists think is that when you're getting consistently less than that, or say you have a few days where you had less than that, you actually start to rebase your own sense of normal.
Mm,
So they've sort of proven that you think that you are not tired, or you have had enough sleep, or you can manage, but you're actually rebasing your own normal. So I would compare it to when you had a glass of wine or a glass and a half of wine, and you think, oh, I'm fine, I'm not drunk at all. But if
yeah,
someone was to actually get you to do something, which is obviously why the drink drive limit is so low,
yeah,
because we don't actually probably even have a perception at that level that our the impact on our reflexes or our response times. So
yeah.
it's in the zone, basically. You're so tired, you've just rebased it so that your body is like, this is actually normal for me, and you've forgotten how it feels like to be fully awake.
Yeah, it's like your body just wants to believe this is normal, so it like tricks you almost. But also when you think about like how of extreme environments people have been able to adapt to in the past, like I don't know, being tortured for months or like weeks on end, and you kind of learn to get along with it almost. But it's like we can also just adjust to such extreme things that your body will seem like it would do
Yeah,
whatever just to kind of keep you going.
yeah. And the other studies, it's really important to remember, and this is what I talked about, the reference to the culture point, was we also base our normal around what's going on around us. So this is my kind of worry for people, is that we normalize lack of sleep so much.
Mm,
So we really do. So if we talk to other people and we say, if you just think about the difference, for example, if I came in and said, hey, Gavin, oh, I've not really eaten at all for a few days, got this thing going on, can't eat, that's fine, it's fine though, and I'm just laughing about it, chances are you would be, your brain is sort of going, well, she's laughing, but she's saying she's not eating, and she's saying she's got a problem, and you'd maybe ask me about that, like, are you okay, or what's going on? But if
yeah,
I turned up and went, oh, I've not slept all week, it's been terrible, but we'll get on with it, you'll probably just laugh along and go, oh gosh, yeah, that's how I find that people go through life, and they haven't put sleep in that same category as
yeah,
if I said I couldn't eat, or there's other things that I couldn't do. So I think that to me shows that there is some cultural bias still around not taking sleep seriously and normalizing lack of sleep. So when I had my sleep issue, because I obviously suffered with this in the beginning, which is why I got into it,
mm,
um, and I would talk to other people, all I would get is acknowledgement that, yeah, me too. Yeah, well, you've got 3 children. What do you expect? Yeah, well, you've got a senior job and 3 children. Yeah, well, life is busy. It's totally normalizes this thing. So you either don't act, or like you say, you just suck it up and get on with it. And then your body readjusts the normal for you. So you're not doing anything about it. So I still think that has a major impact, that kind of cultural normalizing of it.
yeah. I mean, I guess also it just doesn't come up in regular conversation that often. like maybe back in university days, you're like, oh, I didn't sleep, partying so much last night type of thing. But it's not like, how did you sleep last night? Like, it's not just like normal office conversation. But you touched on something I wanted to dive into, is like, why are you so passionate about teaching people to sleep better? Like, how did you get into all of this? Like, what's that journey like?
Yeah, so I was actually my client. I was my, typical client. I have a senior corporate job, 3 children. I was volunteering. I had all the stuff going on. And really, again, which is really typical, I had a life event which interrupted my sleep. So I was always a really good sleeper, never had any problem with sleep. And then I had the kids, and obviously they keep you up when they're newborn. And I just thought, well, okay, that's normal, obviously. And as soon as the children start to sleep again, I'll start to sleep again. But
Mm,
what happened was I didn't. So the kids were sleeping through the night and I wasn't. I was getting into this pattern of waking at 2 a.m. I'd lie awake for an hour or two.
mm,
This would be kind of 3-4 nights a week. And very quickly, I went into quite a downward spiral. But it's interesting what we're talking about, because I don't think I recognized it at all. I was just really in the pattern of, oh, having kids is exhausting. I've got to get myself out of bed with the alarm. I've got to drink lots of coffee. I've got to get through the day.
yeah.
And then I'm going to repeat the cycle again. And I was actually suffering, only with hindsight. I didn't actually have awareness of this, but it actually started to impact lots of things about my life. So my anxiety levels increased, my negative inner self-talk increased,
Mm,
my worries about the future increased. So I started to kind of have all sorts of worries about what happens if this, what happens if that. Also, my immune system dropped. So I
mm,
kept getting repeated throat infections, which I again had attributed to the fact that I'd recently had children. But as as my newborn baby turned into a toddler, I still wasn't making the connection that
yeah.
it's actually quite a long time, but you're still getting these recurring throat infections. um so all that kind of thing was going on. But what actually happened in the end was my eyesight started to suffer.
Mm,
So I went to the optician. I said, look, I'm really struggling. My eye's going a bit funny at nighttime. He was like, I can't find anything wrong with your vision. Your prescription is fine. And then he kind of went and said, let me have a chat with my colleague. And he came back and he said, I'm a bit worried because you're only in your 30s and there's no reason why you should see this degeneration. We're going to refer you to the hospital just in case you've got a brain tumor. And I was like, okay.
yeah.
And he's like, it's fine. It's not going to be a brain tumor, but we just have to, this is our health system and we have to be sure because you're presenting with these symptoms.
But it might
So I
also,
went, sorry, go on.
he's like, but it might also be a brain tumor. So let's just check it out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, you'd be really unlucky, but, statistically, but it is possible.
Yeah.
So we've got to just check it out. Exactly that. So I was like, okay. So what happened was I went to the eye specialist at the hospital and he sat me down and he went, talk to me about your life. And I went, okay. And I went, well, I have these 3 children and I have this busy job and I have this on commute and I do this. And he's like, mm-hmm. And he's like, and how do you sleep? And I was like, oh, could be better. And he was like, you have a sleep problem. He
Yeah.
said, I'm going to do all the tests I need to do. He said, but I can almost guarantee to you, you have a sleep problem. He said, I see it all the time. This is an eye doctor. He's like, I see it all the time. I was just blown away. I was just like, what? I mean, I couldn't compute. He was like, yeah. He said, and he told me more about sleep in 20 minutes than I had learned in my lifetime. No exaggeration. He's like, it affects this, it affects this, it should be this, it shouldn't be that. And I was like, I didn't know any of this. How do I not know any of this? I have like a school A level in biology, I have a degree, I have, been in work for years, I'm well read, in my opinion, I have loads of friends who are well read. We don't talk about this, what's going on.
Yeah.
And I was just blown away. So that was the kind of first thing that I was like, wow, more people should know about this. And then the second thing was, he went, anyway, my recommendation is go and fix your sleep issue, but I'm an eye doctor, so good luck with that.
Yeah. Have fun.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh, okay. So then I went off and I tried my best to, well, read up about it. Okay, how do I fix my sleep issue? Let me take control. I'm a fixer. Let me sort this out. And I really struggled. It took me ages. I had to read everything I could find. Most of the advice was around sleep hygiene, which was completely useless, frankly. Nobody really talked about this 2 a.m. issue. How do I fix that?
Yeah.
And so I really, really struggled, and it took me a long time, trial and error, too much wasted time. And I just thought, I need to step into this space. Because once I fixed my sleep issue, I did eventually kind of figure it out, but it took me ages. I just thought, oh my gosh. I mean, I literally, it's no exaggeration to say, I just look back at the last few years and thought, what a waste of the last few years. I have been struggling so much with only with the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean, because when you're in it, you're in it. But I just thought, oh no, I've been tired, I've been anxious, I've been negative self-talk, I've been ill all the time. I just been generally unhappy. And just not even like, seriously unhappy, but even like, it's not okay to drag yourself through a day. It doesn't have to be that you get to 3 o'clock and you're like, oh gosh, I'm really fighting sleep. Oh gosh, am I going to get through this meeting? Like, that's not okay. That's not okay. We've normalized that, but that's not okay. And it doesn't have to be like that. So there were all these things that I realized, and I just thought, I have to train. I have to train and help other people.
Yeah. And you mentioned briefly sleep hygiene, you didn't find that too useful. Could you just kind of expand on what you mean by that for people listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I find is, and this is, I understand it, it's fair enough, because it would take us, say we were coaching about sleep now, it would take us a few sessions for me to explain to this is how sleep works, this is what you maybe want to do, this is what you maybe don't want to do.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to impart that information in one article, or one very short soundbite, which is what people tend to want when you're obviously going on the internet, or you're reading a blog, or you're reading the newspaper or something like that. So what tends to happen is that, and even if you go onto kind of health websites and things like that, because they're in blog format or article format, what you find is people have to convey the information that can be conveyed in a snapshot. And that tends to be sleep hygiene. So it tends to be things like put your mobile phone away, make sure you have the same bedtime every night, maybe have a relaxing bedtime routine. So these kind of same messages just go round and round and round and round and round. Now, that's fine if you have a very minor blip. So if you're a very good sleeper, and then you have a kind of blip where you have a few days of not good sleep, it's possibly because your sleep hygiene went off course. And by that, I mean, it's possibly because you maybe had a late night, or perhaps you were working too late one night on your laptop and you were looking at the screen till 11 o'clock or something like that. So those kind of tips are very helpful when you may not have realized what you did to disrupt your sleep for 1 or 2 nights. And then you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Let me pull that back very quickly. But if you've got the type of sleep issue that I had, which is you've got, like you were talking about, you possibly have a very stressful life where you're increasing the amount of cortisol circulating, coupled with the fact that you are having anxious thoughts, or just any thoughts going around in the middle of the night, and you don't know how to break that habitual pattern, coupled with you probably now have some anxiety around sleep, because now you can't sleep. So now you're worried about the fact that you can't sleep, and that's actually raising anxiety around sleep. All these things, you're way beyond sleep hygiene, if that makes sense. You're way beyond a kind of quick fix, put your mobile phone away at 8 o'clock and go to bed at 10 and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by sleep hygiene doesn't cut it. And most people, like I say, the issue that they have is, and why I started out was, when you read all the sleep advice and the articles, they're just churning and churning and churning and rechurning the same sleep hygiene advice. And you try it all, and then you try sleep products, because there are a lot of quick fix sleep products out there, and then you try those. None of these things work, and that makes you very fed up as well, because you start to think there is no solution.
Yeah.
And that brings its own sort of issue.
Yeah. And it's because all those articles are, well, kind of, I guess, regurgitating the same stuff all of them are saying, but it's also just like so kind of blanket statement as opposed to like the deep specific stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a one size fits all repetition. And like I say, I've got empathy, because to be fair, I have companies that reach out to me and ask me the same things. Could you give me 5 sentences that tell that that our readers can know how to sleep? And I'm explaining, well, no, I can't give you 5 sentences that will help your readers sleep. Let's work on an article on one particular area or one particular thing, and then maybe we can give people some more advice on that one particular thing in more detail. But please don't just regurgitate the same 5 generic things, because your point is correct. If you go to article to article to article and read the same things, your mind is almost thinking maybe that's all there is to it. Do you see? It's forming that kind of like, well, if everyone's saying it's that, it must be that. But I've tried that, so therefore I've tried everything, and there are no solutions. And the amount of clients that come to me and say, I have tried everything, and I say, by everything, do you mean all the sleep hygiene? And they say, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so from being having this experience yourself and kind of going through that journey to just help yourself out, because everything was kind of falling apart, like your eyesight, you said, was kind of deteriorating, all of that stuff. I mean, what made you want to go, now I want to teach people this as well, I want to turn this into like a business?
So I think that just picking up on what I said before around firstly, the difficulty that I have. So the solutions are not complicated solutions for sleep, as you might expect. Sleep is a very basic, primitive function. So it has very basic, primitive mechanisms that you have to work around. So fundamentally, the answers are not complicated. And so what I really felt was, it's like there's this very, very straightforward solution, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody's really spreading that message. People are perpetuating the sleep hygiene messages, but nobody's really talking about some of the actual problems, some of the actual solutions to the problems that people are experiencing. That's the first thing. So I wanted to say, look, I want to cut through all of this and really start to talk to people about the real solutions to this type of sleep issue. So that's the first thing. And I think the other thing was just, I felt like I had uncovered a secret which had made my life brilliant. And then it felt kind of selfish to be like, well, I wouldn't just share that, because there are so many people, and it is a growing thing. And it really makes me feel quite, upset that we don't talk to our teenagers about this in school, or we don't, like you say, we don't have these conversations with other people. We don't say, hey, how did you sleep? Are you okay? And if people say, no, I didn't, we don't join in and go, oh yeah, it's terrible, me too, it's fine. Because lots of people, they did say to me, and it's well meant that they said, just get on with it. Just deal with it, just get on with it. And so I wanted to do, if I could play even a small part and help even a few people to help them understand it's not okay, you don't have to put up with it. It is actually really serious, because what starts out as quite a jokey, jovial, thing, like I just have a bad day and now I need an extra cup of coffee. If that starts repeating itself, it can lead to really serious health problems. So, even if a few people listen to me or my podcast, or I help them, or I'm talking to them in everyday conversation, or they're watching this and they think, right, okay, maybe I should stop making a joke out of my sleep issue. Maybe I should actually take the time to fix it, like I say, just as you would other things that were more serious.
Yeah. I think that says a lot that your first almost instinct was like, it would be selfish for me not to kind of share this with more people, even if it's just telling people about it and like educating people, but to also go further and actually work with people. I think it says a lot that you're like, this would be selfish not to.
Yeah, I do, because I can't, and sometimes it's hard, because when you're talking to people and they know you have a business, it almost sounds like a sales pitch to say this changed my life, but it's
Yeah.
not an exaggeration. It's not an exaggeration to say that. That is what drove me to do it, because I literally felt like I'd come out from this cloud, and I did. I look back at those years and I just thought, I don't think I was even there. I don't think I was even there. I felt like I was probably a zombie going through, and I was so focused on just getting through the day and when was I going to get to bed, and then but knowing when I got to bed I wasn't probably actually going to fully sleep anyway, and all of this. And as I say, I had like really negative self-talk that you only notice later when it goes, and you're like, gosh, yeah, I used to beat myself up a lot. I don't do that anymore. Or I used
Yeah.
to get these throat infections. And I remember saying to my husband, I was like, I haven't had a throat infection, have I, in ages? And he's like, no, no. And I'm like, that must be the sleep.
That's
All these things.
I mean, I know for a lot of the online holistic and spiritual coaches I've spoken to over time, a lot of them said people kind of knew what they were doing because they were telling their story on Facebook. They were kind of just letting people know what they were up to and what they were learning. Was it kind of the same for you? Were you like, hey, I'm working through sleep issues. This is what I'm finding is useful, or did you kind of keep it to yourself mostly?
Yeah, so while I was actually on my sleep recovery journey, yeah, I didn't post about it because in everyday life, I'm not particularly out there on social media and posting what I'm doing. So just really, I was just kind of in a cupboard, if you like, just reading all the stuff and trying to fix it. And like I say, to be honest, and this is how sort of crazy it is, I didn't actually understand that all those things I was experiencing, A, I was actually experiencing, or B, were actually linked to my sleep.
Mm,
I only started to fix my sleep issue because my doctor was like, your eyesight's going and you need to fix your sleep issue. It was only after I did that and fixed my eyesight, but then I thought, I feel about 10 years younger. I'm not getting ill. I'm not like feeling all down about myself. I'm not worried. I have loads of energy. So suddenly where people were saying to me, well, no wonder you're tired because you've got 3 children, job, the volunteering, the commute, da, da, da.
yeah.
I was getting up in the morning and being like, hiya. And I was like, da, 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 and I was doing my work and I was doing all things. And I was coming home at tea time and I was like, right, what's next? And I still had loads of energy. And it was only after I experienced that ridiculously big change that I felt inspired to actually go out and start talking to other people. So yeah, for me, it wasn't that I was sharing on the way. It was after the event when I realized the impact that I thought it would be selfish not to at least go and say to other people, guess what happened to me
Yeah.
when I fixed this tiny thing, which seemed like a tiny thing.
Yeah, but I think there's a very good lesson in there. It's like I've consistently seen that thread with so many people I've spoken to, and that what they ended up coaching or consulting with or helping other people with is just the thing they helped themselves fix. And they were like, this had such a big impact on me. Like, I want to help other people feel the same change because I know how bad it was before.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And, when I get clients that say to me now, I wish I'd found you earlier,
Yeah.
that's, I wish I'd come forward sooner, because then I know that they're thinking the same thing. Wow, this time was wasted time almost. This time
Yeah.
was lost time where I could have got help, should have got help, or people tried to get help, but like I say, were in my rabbit hole of sleep hygiene, the same thing, and then it took them a while to find a different solution.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for you, it sounds like it would almost be like a bit sad when they come to you and say like, oh, I wish I'd found you sooner. But then also on the other hand, very rewarding because you're like, oh, you don't even know about like how much better you're going to feel like soon.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly the thing, because people are quite surprised as well how quickly you can make improvements. I think that a lot of people start off thinking it's going to be a very long kind of fix it, but actually can be very quick. So most people will find improvement within a couple of weeks.
Mm.
So, and like you're saying, then they're like, oh wow, I feel better after a couple of weeks. And to your point, I'm like, wait after you've had a year of great sleep and this is your norm, and your life is going to be completely different.
Yeah. So, I mean, so when you kind of wanted to now start putting kind of the message out and like, this was incredible, this is the transformation I had, how did you actually go about getting those first few people to work with and turn it into like a coaching business, essentially?
Yeah, so what I did first was I wanted to go and have some formal certification. So even though most of the stuff that I coach people on is actually my own method,
Yeah.
still I wanted to go and have some certification and learn the kind of background to being a sleep coach, and to have that wider knowledge of sleep and biology and that kind of stuff. So I went and got my certification, and as part of that, they advise, just start with the people that you know. So just go on Facebook and stick your hand up and go, hey, I'm coaching. Does anyone want some introductory coaching? And so that's what I did. And of course, several people that I knew kind of, tentatively went, yeah, I don't sleep. And I was quite surprised, because again, what we talked about, I'm like, really? You don't sleep? And they're like, no, I've struggled with sleep for ages. And so so people started coming out of the woodwork and saying, yeah, that's me, I would like some coaching. And that's how it started. So it's getting those first few clients from my own friends and family, and then obviously they were able to go through the method and help me refine my coaching, and then provide testimonials that
Mm.
can then go and inspire other people. And to me, that's how it grows. And obviously every time I coach someone, then there's always a new nugget of information that I get from them that helps me feed back into the next client and the next client.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I love kind of, I'm guessing you learned a bit of that in the coaching program you went through, but that's such a awesome way to get started. And it's the way I've heard many times. It's just, there's probably so many people around you who you don't realize have the issue you potentially could help them with, sleep or mindset problems, or maybe they need a bit of branding or like whatever you want to coach in. Like, people just sometimes don't speak about it until someone mentions it and be like, hey, I actually can potentially help with this. Who's got this? And everyone you know is like, me. And you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize.
Yeah, exactly. And I heard a coach, because I do invest in business coaches. I'm a coach, so it'd be wrong of me not to invest in business coaches in my business.
Yeah.
But I had one coach recently say to me one simple sentence, and he said, I live from the mantra, who can I help today? And that really resonated with me. I was like, yeah, exactly. And by that, he just meant, who can I help today? Like, literally, who is here? Who do I know? Who do I have access to? Who might need it? And do you see what I mean? So it's kind of like, yeah, actually, we all probably, when we think about it, have access to lots of forums, either Facebook or friend groups, or maybe somebody who runs a group who would be interested in the topic that you want to coach on, and you could reach out to them and say, hey, can I help your audience, or can I help your clients, or can I help your so the other thing I did at the beginning was I did some volunteer coaching as well. So
Mm.
and I still do, although the pandemic has affected it somewhat because we can't do it face to face. But I reached out to local charities and said, look, do you have any beneficiaries who are going to benefit from increased sleep? And one of our local caring charities reached out and said, yeah, we have carers who really struggle to sleep because they're worried that either being woken by the person they're caring for, or they're worried about the person that they're caring for, and that impacts their sleep, and we'd love it if you could come. And again, it's just doing that, because part of it, Gavin, I think is about getting clients and getting paid, but part of it is about getting confidence in your own ability to coach and refining your message. And the more people that you can coach and you can put your message in front of, then more times you can understand whether they're really getting it. Is it landing? Are they understanding it? So I think in the beginning, to me, it's as important to think about who can I help today and how can I help them, as much as it is about how do I get paying clients straight away.
Yeah. No, it's interesting you mentioned the confidence thing of doing some volunteering at the start just to build that confidence. Because I was actually going to ask you if you did the certification because you felt like you just needed that certification to feel comfortable saying, hey, I'm coaching in this now, as opposed to just, oh, I went through this journey, I found it useful. Who wants to kind of, like, if it was more for you almost?
Yes, I think that's fair to say. I think it was. I think at the beginning I thought it would be helpful for the actual practice, and it would be helpful for me to kind of have something to kind of, have something to say that I'm certified.
Yeah.
But actually, what I find that I coach people on is, like I say, realistically, it's turned out to be mainly my own method and not so much about what I learned in the coaching practice, because the coaching practice was very broad.
Yeah.
Whereas I help people with this very specific issue. So you're right. Yeah, no, it did help with my personal confidence to stand up and go out and put myself out there.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I've loved the way you've shared your story and your journey. And one thing I would love to ask is kind of to end on is like, if you could put the message out to people who potentially aren't sleeping very well, it's like, who should be reaching out to you to say like, hey, I might need help with this? Is it people waking up at 2 a.m.? Was like, who do you want to basically be chatting to?
Yeah, so it's anyone who really feels that they can't sleep because their own thoughts are interfering with their sleep and keeping them awake. So yes, so if you're taking ages to go to sleep when you first go to bed, or if you're waking at early hours of the morning and you can't get back to sleep because you just can't get your mind to switch off, it's really those people that I specialize in helping. Like I said, because the other things out there like sleep hygiene and the kind of products and stuff, they're just not cutting it. So, and what I would say, if you find yourself in that position, is please, please, please don't live with it. Don't struggle on with it. It's actually relatively, really simply and quickly fixed in most cases. So there's no need to, live with it or put up with it.
Yeah. So also people who feel they've tried everything and nothing's worked.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. I would love for the last thing before we say our goodbyes is just for you to let people know like what is actually the best way for them to reach out to you and see kind of the content you're putting out and just chat with you.
Yeah, so the place I would recommend to start is my podcast. It's called How to Sleep. It does what it says on the tin. And in that podcast, I really start to talk about all the stuff that other people aren't talking about. So what is going on in the middle of the night when you wake up? Why are your thoughts so important? How does cortisol affect you? How does the control aspect? So we talked about your own focus on sleep. How does that end up tripping you up? So all these kind of topics that I talk about on the podcast. So that's How to Sleep. And I'd recommend that you start there. Otherwise, you can join me on Instagram at Nicky.Blakeman.
Awesome. Yeah, and obviously we'll drop everything in the bottom. But yeah, thanks so much for taking the time today. This was definitely an episode leaning more towards the holistic side. And, I just found it really, really fascinating and interesting. So thanks again for the time.
Thank you. I've loved chatting with you. So thanks very much again for inviting me.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Automator Series as much as I enjoyed having it. And there are two things I want you to do now. I want you firstly to follow me on YouTube, get that subscription in, because you're going to see all the new episodes popping up in that case, and you can stay on top of the series. And the second thing is, I want you to reach out to me. If anything we discussed on the episode today resonated with you in regards to potentially taking a jump into an online spiritual coaching business, or you really have a business and you're wanting to grow that out and you're feeling like you could be impacting a lot more lives, but you don't quite have the time right now, you don't quite have the freedom you wanted, and you don't quite have those systems in place, I want you to reach out to me. It's a no pressure, no strings attached. Send me a message on Facebook, LinkedIn, email, whatever you prefer, and we can just have a conversation and a bit of a back and forth in regards to where you're at, what you're looking for, and how I might be able to help you impact more lives with what you're doing.